The original Xbox is always going to hold a special place in my heart. I must have been just about 7 years old when my dad brought home the then new console one afternoon, and yes, I said 7, sorry if I made some of you out there feel ancient. At the time, I wanted a Nintendo GameCube, but I certainly did not oppose the Xbox as my introduction to the 6th generation of home consoles. As far as I was concerned, the Xbox was light years ahead of the Nintendo 64 I had in my room since my 4th birthday. It was the grown-ups video game console with mature games like Halo Combat Evolved and Dead or Alive 3. It had DVD playback, broadband internet connectivity, built-in hard disk storage, and most of all, it went in the living room and my brother and I had to ask permission to play it. One of my absolute favorite games on the Xbox with the mature flair was Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. Now mind you, the Splinter Cell franchise had always been multi-platform, but it most shines as an Xbox series. The GameCube and PlayStation 2 ports weren't as up to snuff in graphical fidelity, and even had portions of the levels cut out entirely. The Xbox versions were mostly uncompromised from the games on PC, and ultimately were more critically and commercially successful than the other ports. Official Xbox Magazine gave Splinter Cell Chaos Theory its highest score ever at the time, a 9.9. Why not just give it a 10? Likewise, Chaos Theory would go on to be one of the standout games of 2005, continuing the burst of great stealth games from the year prior, like Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, Thief, Deadly Shadows, The Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay, and even Chaos Theory's own predecessor, Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow. Like I said, this game was one of my favorites back in the day, and I, among many others, consider it to be the best in the series. The recent games have taken a different, if streamlined, approach from the original releases / not been around at all. The last game came out 5 years ago. So how about we take a look back at Splinter Cell Chaos Theory and how it holds up 13 years after its release. 13 years, now I feel ancient. Chaos Theory takes place in the not-so-distant future of 2007, in which Japan has established its own Informational Warfare Self-Defense Force, the ISDF. China and North Korea are unhappy with the formation of the ISDF, as they view it as a violation of post-World War II self-defense agreements and set up blockades in the Yellow Sea. Per aforementioned post-World War II agreements, the US sends its most capable craft, the USS Clarence E. Walsh, to Japan's aid. As tensions rise in the waters of the Orient, the NSA dispatches 3rd Echelon veteran Sam Fisher to a lighthouse somewhere off the coast of Peru to take care of a seemingly unrelated terrorist kidnapping of one of the world's best in advanced computer programming, Bruce Morgan Holt. Before he knows it, Fisher is caught in the intersection of both of these events, as a series of cyber attacks implementing Morgan Holt's work on powerful computer algorithms brings the tensions in East Asia to the brink of World War III. If I'm being 100% honest, I can never really get into these realistic fiction military type stories, but that's not to say Chaos Theory's plot is bad. If anything, it's just a bit disjointed. Cutscenes are jumpy and can be difficult to follow at times. It's almost like they switch between being actual threads in a plotline and just simple exposition dumps to frame the game's levels. Most of the plot will unravel itself in the pre-mission briefings and in-game radio conversations, so you'd hardly be missing anything if you just skipped all the cutscenes to get into the game right away. It's a passable original take on early 21st century's diplomatic relations and the technological advances made. Sam Fisher makes for equal parts a likable and believable protagonist. I love a good, young, wisecracking action hero, but the genre can always use more of the old dogs. Fisher is an ex-Navy SEAL spending the twilight years of his career as a one-man intrusion machine, doing the NSA's dirtiest of dirty work. He views his missions and deadly abilities as strictly business and doesn't shy away from less than humane methods. Fisher has a dark sense of humor about the shady situations he finds himself in, and will even toy around with enemies when he's guaranteed to have the upper hand.
Didn't anyone ever tell you that spelunking is dangerous?
Oh no! You're going to kill me, right?
Only if you say the word monkey.
Accompanying Fisher is his radio support trio. They're not the most interesting bunch of bananas, but they have their moments of good idle chit-chat and humorous banter with Fisher.
Hey, wait a minute. Power spike. The lobby. It looks like a laser grid just came online.
Lasers. Lasers are so...
90s?
I was gonna say 70s. Can you please stop making me feel old?
Got bad news for you, Sam. You are old.
Splinter Cell Chaos Theory was released in early 2005, and you can certainly tell just by looking at the game. Though it's more or less hot garbage by today's standards, Chaos Theory was one of the greatest looking games at its release, with its parallax texture mapping, high dynamic range lighting, and ragdoll physics, perhaps the hottest commodity of mid-2000s game tech. Facial animations do look a little goofy most of the time, but the full body animation is fluid and believable, Fisher's in particular. Sam sleuths about with a realistic sense of weight, and even shifts his weight to return to a relaxed standing position if you stop his movement. I love the way that Fisher shifts all of his weight backwards and rests his hand above his knife once he's close enough to an enemy to smell his aftershave. Though it'll never happen in-game, it looks like Sam might slump over or lose his balance taking a step. There's a fat, juicy rush of tension and excitement every time you stalk an enemy like this. I love it. Coupled with Chaos Theory's gorgeous visuals at the time, is a super sleuthy espionage soundtrack by Amon Tobin, and hot damn is this how you do a stealth game soundtrack. Most music in Chaos Theory implements subtle percussion, as well as quick and repetitive punchy guitar and bass riffs that perfectly complement the stealth environment. If you start to get sloppy and tip enemies off to your presence, percussion becomes less subdued and may be accompanied by a haunting emphasis on strings and synths. Trigger a proper combat phase and the soundtrack becomes a bombastic ensemble of drums and cymbals, cluing you into the fact that you gotta get out of there, man. I'm no music chaos theory professor, so I can't say much about the music other than I think it sounds great. But to this day, I still can't quite think of a game that captures the respective spirits of stealth and detection as well as chaos theory. Just listen to the bank missions theme and try to tell me you can't perfectly imagine the cartoon cat burglar sneaking around. Splinter Cell Chaos Theory is a stealth action game. The game is built around fulfilling several mission objectives and reaching a goal, all while exposing yourself to the enemy as little as possible. Much of the game takes place inside indoor confinements. Levels are structured as a series of rooms and hallways connected with each other, sometimes interweaving with each other or opening up to larger areas. Some of the levels include a Japanese bathhouse resort, a luxurious bank, and a cargo ship. There's plenty of branching and alternate pathways, but you'll never find yourself getting lost. If anything, your exploration will be rewarded with health or equipment items, secondary objective points, and pathways that grant you a great advantage over enemies or even circumvent them entirely. Some of the levels even have unique gimmicks like not being able to kill certain types of NPCs. There's a certain section of the cargo ship where a gas leak causes any weapon firing from either side to result in an instant mission failure, and some of the later levels even have different factions of enemies battling each other while you sneak about them. I think Chaos Theory has solid level design overall, but certain sections leave me scratching my head. Take for example in the bank mission, after breaking into the vault and getting ready to be on your way, there's a laser tripwire that activates in the vault's doorway, putting the entire bank on alert. The laser itself can easily be deactivated if you know it's there and what tool to use, but this is the very definition of a beginner's trap, and it really feels like it was just put there to pad out the closing minutes of this mission. Core objective during play is to not allow yourself to cross the enemy's line of sight, but Chaos Theory offers an incredible wealth of depth and gameplay mechanics to complement this. Arguably, Splinter Cell's most defining feature as a whole is its emphasis on light, and how light can be manipulated by either the player or the enemy to their advantage. In short, the more lit up an area is, the more likely you're going to be detected by patrolling enemies. The HUD features a dynamic light bar indicating the intensity of the light in the area Fisher is in. If the meter runs all the way left, you're a ghost's shadow. Run the meter to the right, and you're lit up like Liberace's Christmas tree. The ideal method of combating light is to simply get rid of it by either shooting and breaking bulbs out or just by flipping the switch off. The light mechanic in Chaos Theory does more than its fair share of twists throughout the game to remain complex and interesting. Some lights are guarded in a protective cage and can't be shot. Some guards light and throw flares around, others have flashlights, and some don't have anything at all. Some surveillance cameras can even see without light. I think my favorite gimmick that Chaos Theory does with light is this mission that starts in the middle of a citywide blackout, leaving only emergency and the utility lights on. Then halfway through the mission, the lights come back on. You have to navigate back through the area you've already made a mental map of with a simple single change that greatly alters the entire way that you'll be playing. If you got sloppy and left unconscious bodies out, their hiding spots can be completely lost, and the challenge creeps upward. You can't kill anyone in this mission on top of all of that. In addition to the focus on light, Chaos Theory introduced a major focus on sound-based stealth as well. The element of sound had been a part of the franchise since the first game, albeit shallow. Fast standing movement was louder than slow crouch walking, suppressors were essentially useless at close range, and cans and bottles could be tossed for distraction. That's about it. Chaos Theory introduces an aural environment meter, not unlike the light bar. An empty square jumps about the meter, representing the amount of ambient surrounding sound in the environment. Most actions the player can do give off a sound represented by the bar lighting up in this VU meter fashion. The surrounding sound indicator acts as the detection threshold. Any action that doesn't cross this threshold is essentially muted. This is one of the greatest mechanics in this game in my opinion. The improved focus on sound and stealth actually allows for a dedicated whistle button, allowing the player to have access to a quick burst of noise for distraction and luring. The sound meter is a very deliberate addition, and elements of level design and theming are often built around it. There's this one conversation between two guards where one of them recounts the story of a Navy SEAL raid from his youth. He tells of how the SEALs masked each and every one of their actions beneath the sound of thunder. After the conversation is over, a blurb appears in your notes saying, "Hey, that's the thing you can actually do in this video game." The kicker is that before thunder comes lightning, bright lightning that can expose you like daylight even for just a second. This isn't the only time that the light and sound mechanics intertwine like this. Sometimes the player will encounter areas with floodlights fueled by a loud generator. This gives the player a choice and approach. Quickly bask in the light, masking your steps in the generator's hum, or do you cut the power, enveloping the territory in silent darkness? In fact, many obstacles and stealth encounters in Chaos Theory can be approached in a multitude of ways. As with many stealth games, the player is given the choice of a lethal or non-lethal approach throughout the game. The cool thing about this is that before each mission, the player can choose one of 3 loadout options: a balance between raw firepower and sneaky equipment, a stealth option that limits ammo in favor of gas grenades, taser rounds, remote cameras, and the like, and finally the assault kit, giving you stacks of bullets, hand grenades, and wall mines with less non-lethality at your disposal. It's great that the game allows you to make this pick before every level. It welcomes multiple approaches to each mission and even lets the player express themselves a little. That being said, yeah, you can choose to go in as a one-man army, mowing everyone down in your path, but this is a stealth game. The strictly assault approach isn't going to be kind to your mission grade, and on top of that, it just isn't as fun as ghosting through missions with no traces in my opinion. I pick the stealth loadout every go. Sam is also equipped with his trademark, absolutely not sneaky at all, tri-goggles. These give the player access to night vision, predator vision, and this funky electrical signal vision. The use of the first two are pretty self-explanatory, but these electromagnetic thermals are kind of strange at first go. Their use is meant to be coupled with this EMP blast that Sam's got on his pistol. This secondary fire will temporarily disable whatever electronic device it's shot at. You can use it to disable the lights in a room, duping guards into thinking that it's just farting out instead of directly shooting at it and making them jumpy. You can disable cameras with it, you can lure guards across the room with it. It's actually a little bit unbalanced how often this thing can be used as a catch-all for stealth encounters. There's a cooldown before you can use it again, but it's still a little bit of a busted mechanic. That said, Chaos Theory still has considerable depth in the way of player choice and approach, though its overall design is absolutely geared towards stealth. Every time the player runs into an immediate obstacle, there's at least 2 different methods of approach. Take, for example, getting past a door locked by a key code. You could override the code with a hack, granting you immediate access through the door. However, if someone comes patrolling by, they're going to notice that the door's been tampered with by someone that's not supposed to be there. You could grab a guard from behind and force the code out of him, but then you've got to deal with the mess of a whole body on your hands. Maybe you can go snooping through computer records and find the code, or even eavesdrop on 2 enemies reminding each other of the code. Maybe in true badass Splinter Cell fashion, you'll just wait for someone else to open the door and creep behind them while you've still got the chance. Sitting and waiting will get you through a lot, really. It's better to keep your finger off the triggers until absolutely necessary. In the event that you do get sloppy and reveal yourself to the enemy, you'll be treated to Chaos Theory's combat. I'll get right to it. I hate firefights in this game. Firearms are equipped with a press of the X button, taking the player to a very stilted third-person aiming perspective. There's little, if not any, noticeable aim assist. Enemies behave like flimsy cardboard, giving no real tactile feedback when shot, and it really feels like combat is just tilted in favor of the enemy every time. I swear, for every 8 shots I have to pump into an enemy to down them, they just have to land 2 and I'm dead. A lot of times after being detected, your only option is to neutralize the enemy, and this can really make detection feel like a frustrating chore when it happens. The combat becomes especially annoying when the game veers a little too close into forced encounter territory in the later missions. It's a shame because outside of a direct confrontation, Sam can dispose of his enemies effortlessly in a multitude of ways. In addition to the cool stealth and attack attachments to Sam's rifle, Sam can almost always perform non-lethal and lethal takedowns with the left and right triggers respectively. These both are one-hit knockouts, but the non-lethal takedown always takes a little bit longer than a direct kill, adding strategy to enemy neutralizations. These can be done within standing close range, while interrogating, and even while hanging from above when possible. There are a handful of additional context-sensitive kills you can perform as well, often hinted at in mission loading screens. The close combat options available in Chaos Theory are welcome tools, especially when compared to the previous Splinter Cell games, but I think they cause a bit of a rift in the game's balance overall. Having access to instant solutions to close encounters diminishes the tension of being in such close proximity to enemies. In some firefight situations, it actually makes for a better option to just charge through gunfire and penetrate your enemy with your one-hit kill knife. Close combat can be a little too easy to exploit in regards to the enemy AI as well. If the level design allows for it, it's very easy to lure an enemy to a certain spot and wait a couple steps outside that spot, incapacitating them whenever they turn around to head back. This predictability is an issue with Chaos Theory throughout. Enemies never really do anything particularly interesting outside of making a slow crawl toward the last point of suspicion, changing their speed depending on how many times their attention is diverted. Even when multiple sentries are tipped off, they just follow each other in a line, never splitting apart or saying, "Hey, you check around over there." Sometimes enemies don't even enter an alert state, despite their comrades yelling their head off about an intruder just one room away. This can obviously be chalked up to limitations of 2005 artificial intelligence, more or less making it impervious to criticism outside of a retrospective viewpoint, but nonetheless it can make the game seem unimpressive when compared to more robust AI systems in recent games like Metal Gear Solid 5. The shortcomings of the AI and repetition of how suspicion, detection, and combat can be handled may appear to water down Chaos Theory's stealth elements to some, but to me they encourage a playstyle built around ghosting environments, leaving as little traces as possible. I find detection to be a real pace breaker sometimes. Nonetheless, it's still super fun sneaking around in the dark and doing cool stunts just out of arm's reach from the enemy. Splinter Cell Chaos Theory is a great game. Maybe not the nearly perfect and pristine 9.9 Xbox Magazine gave it, but it's still an amazing game overall. In addition to a great single-player campaign, Chaos Theory also has a co-op campaign, as well as the online Spies vs. Mercs multiplayer mode. I won't go too in-depth with the co-op mode in this review, but I can say that it's a very fun addition to the game. In short, it's just about all the stuff I just talked about, but with an extra guy. There are a few tweaks here and there, but the coolest part of the co-op is all the team moves you can perform together. You can play with a local area system link, as well as online with Xbox Live. Well, at least you could when the servers were still active. I think Chaos Theory's co-op definitely benefits more from you both being in the same room. It's a very vocal two-player experience, a very point-at-the-screen type of multiplayer. The lack of the online servers makes Spies vs. Mercs all but impossible to play entirely, but with some tunneling software trickery you can still play a game organized with a small group of friends who also own the game and are still by chance trying to play it online in 2018. There's a video all about this and the game mode itself on the Super Bunny Hop channel. It goes far more in depth than I ever could, so I highly recommend it if that's something you're interested in. Splinter Cell Chaos Theory is one of the best stealth games I've ever played, and I absolutely recommend it to both mega fans of the genre, as well as someone that's never played a stealth game at all before. In my opinion, Chaos Theory is where the Splinter Cell franchise shine the brightest. The newer incarnations aren't bad games by any means, and to their credit, I think they nail the stalking panther style of gameplay that the devs go for. However, I think that the Splinter Cell series plays best when it's focused on environmental manipulation and strategy regarding enemy neutralization and displacement. I'd love to see Ubisoft return to the style of game implemented in the original Xbox releases, but I'm happy to say that Chaos Theory has absolutely held up after 13 years, and I think it's safe to say that it will continue to stand the test of time years down the road. You should play it. Thank you for watching my review on Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. Have you played this game before? What's your favorite part about it? Or maybe do you not like it nearly as much as I do? Leave a comment below. Here's an older video of mine that you can watch if you're interested, and be sure to subscribe for more. Thank you!